My sister mocked my useless hobby for years, but when she needed money, she had no idea my side business made millions. I still remember the exact moment when I realized my sister and I were different. Not just different as in she liked pop music and I preferred alternative, but fundamentally, irreconcilably different. It was my 13th birthday. Mom and Dad had scraped together enough for a small party with a homemade cake and a few balloons. The real gift was that Vanessa had agreed to attend it all. At 17, my sister existed in a separate universe of designer labels and popular friends, while I inhabited the shadows she cast. "Here," Vanessa said, tossing a glossy shopping bag onto my lap. "I outgrew these. Figured you might as well have them instead of them going to actual charity." Inside were 3 designer tops that probably cost more than everything else I owned combined. They were pristine, except for a small coffee stain on one and a tiny tear in another. Stylish, expensive, and utterly not me. "Thanks," I said, knowing what was expected. "Don't get too excited, Maya. They're just hand-me-downs." She flipped her perfect blonde hair over her shoulder. "Not like you'd ever save up for the real thing anyway." Mom shot her a warning glance, but Dad just chuckled. "Vanessa's got a point. Maya's more of a creative type." Creative type. Code for will never make real money. What they didn't understand then, what none of them understood, was that I saw something in those discarded garments that Vanessa couldn't. Where she saw flaws, I saw potential. While she dismissed them as trash, my mind was already racing with ideas for transformations. That night, after everyone went to bed, I stayed up with my grandmother's old sewing machine, the only inheritance I'd received when she passed away the year before. I turned Vanessa's coffee-stained top inside out, added some vintage buttons I'd found at a yard sale, and restructured the neckline. By morning, it was unrecognizable in the best possible way. I wore it to school on Monday. "What the hell is that?" Vanessa asked when she saw me in the kitchen. Her friends were picking her up for school, and she was mortified that they might see me. Did you butcher the top I gave you?" "I redesigned it," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She laughed, the kind of laugh that cuts deeper than any knife. "You look like a charity case playing dress-up designer." God, it's embarrassing. That was the first of many redesigns. Each one earned more mockery, more eye rolls, more dismissals. But something strange happened along the way. People at school started noticing. Not Vanessa's crowd, but the art kids, the theater crowd, the ones who valued originality. "Where did you get that?" became a question I heard regularly. When I admitted I'd made it from thrift store finds or hand-me-downs, the reactions divided sharply. Some thought it was awesome. Others, led by my sister's whisper campaign, thought it was pathetic. Our parents didn't help matters. Dad worked in banking, Mom in real estate. They valued stability, conventional success. When Vanessa announced she wanted to study fashion merchandising at a prestigious university, they beamed with pride. Here was something they could understand, a proper career path with proper credentials. "She'll be the next big thing in fashion," Mom would tell anyone who would listen. She's always had an eye for quality. Meanwhile, my growing collection of sewing supplies, fabric scraps, and thrift store treasures became the family joke. Dad called my bedroom the rag factory. Mom worried about what people would think of the odd clothes I wore. Vanessa just called me the dumpster diver. During my junior year of high school, Vanessa came home for Thanksgiving break from college, bringing her new boyfriend, the son of a department store magnate. "Maya makes her own clothes," she told him at dinner, her voice dripping with barely concealed contempt. "Show him that weird jacket thing you were wearing yesterday." I reluctantly retrieved the vintage denim jacket I'd reconstructed with pieces of an old tapestry and brass hardware. Her boyfriend examined it with practiced retail eyes. "Interesting technique," he said, clearly searching for something polite to say. "Very, bohemian." "I told you," Vanessa laughed. "Total fashion disaster. But we love her anyway." I smiled tightly, the familiar ache of being the family's quirky disappointment settling in my chest. What none of them knew, what they never bothered to discover, was that I'd already sold 3 similar jackets to classmates. that I had a growing Instagram account where I posted my creations under a pseudonym, that when I said I was studying at the library, I was often hunting through estate sales and church bazaars for vintage fabrics and unique accessories. They didn't know because they never asked. In their narrative, I was the odd one with the useless hobby, the directionless dreamer who would eventually need to get serious about life. When are you going to apply to college? Dad would ask at dinner. Vanessa's already lined up an internship at Neiman Marcus for next summer. I'm still figuring things out, I'd say, not mentioning the online business classes I was taking or the spreadsheets tracking my modest but growing sales. Don't wait too long to figure it out, Mom would sigh. Not everyone can be like your sister. No, I thought to myself, not everyone can be. And maybe that's the best thing that ever happened to me. Little did they know I was already building something that would change everything. My life after high school followed a predictable script, at least on the surface. While Vanessa strutted around Fashion Week internships and networked with industry elites, I enrolled in the local community college and took a day job at an accounting firm filing paperwork. A sensible, modest existence that confirmed everyone's expectations for me. At least it's steady work, Dad said when I got the job, the relief evident in his voice. Finally, his odd duck daughter was doing something normal. What my family didn't see was my other life, the one that started at 6 p.m. and often stretched until dawn. It began with a name, Thea Revived. I chose it partly after my grandmother Theodora, whose ancient singer sewing machine had been my first tool, and partly because it meant new life, exactly what I gave to discarded garments. Under this pseudonym, I created an online shop where my reconstructed vintage pieces could shine without the weight of my family's judgment. The first sale came 3 days after I launched. A reconstructed 1970s leather jacket with hand-embroidered, celestial designs across the back. I'd found it in a bin marked $5 at an estate sale and transformed it over 2 weeks of late nights. When the notification pinged that someone had paid $350 for it, I nearly choked on my ramen noodles. Everything okay in there? Mom called from the living room. Fine, I shouted back. Just watching a funny video. That first sale became 10, then 50, then hundreds. I converted my bedroom into a studio, with plastic storage bins labeled by fabric type stacked against one wall. My closet held shipping supplies instead of clothes. I slept on a futon that I folded away each morning to make room for my cutting table. Your room always looks like a bomb went off in a thrift store, Vanessa remarked during one of her rare visits home. She was in town to meet with potential investors for her luxury handbag concept, another venture our parents couldn't stop bragging about. I like being surrounded by possibilities, I replied, casually draping a piece of vintage silk over a half-completed project before she could see it too closely. Well, possibility doesn't pay the bills, she said, examining her manicure. Speaking of which, how's the filing job? Still putting papers in alphabetical order. I smiled tightly. It's fine. How's the investor hunt going? She launched into a self-congratulatory monologue about her business plan and projections, never once asking anything more about my life. Which was perfect, really. The less they all knew, the better. Because by then, Thea Revived had evolved from a casual side hustle into a demanding second job. I'd hired a local photography student to shoot my pieces on models I found through community theater. I learned SEO, marketing, inventory management, and shipping logistics through YouTube tutorials and online courses. My phone would buzz at all hours with new order notifications. One night around 2 a.m., while I was packaging 3 orders for international shipping, my dad knocked on my door. Maya? Why is your light still on? I frantically shoved bubble mailers under my bed before opening the door a crack. Just watching some shows. I lied. I'll go to sleep soon. He peered past me at my desk, where my laptop displayed a shipping label generator. What's all that? School project, I said quickly. For my business communications class. He nodded, clearly uninterested in the details. Well, don't stay up too late. You don't want to be tired at work tomorrow. Right? I agreed. Wouldn't want to misfile something. As soon as he left, I pulled the packages back out and continued working. By morning, I'd completed 7 orders, gotten 3 hours of sleep, and added 2 new designs to my website. During lunch breaks at the accounting firm, I'd respond to customer inquiries from my phone. On weekends, I'd haunt estate sales and vintage shops, developing relationships with owners who began setting pieces aside for me. I created an Instagram presence for Thea, Revived, that quickly gained followers drawn to my anonymous mystique and distinctive style. The designer behind Thea, Revived, continues to maintain their anonymity. Read one indie fashion blog that feature my work. But whoever they are, they're transforming sustainable fashion from hippie afterthought to cutting-edge cool. I printed that review and kept it hidden between the pages of my sketchbook, pulling it out on the hard days when doubt crept in, when I was so tired I could barely see straight, or when I heard my sister on speakerphone with Mom, discussing her meetings with Vogue editors. 6 months into my double life, I received an order from a stylist for a music video. Then another for a photo shoot with an up-and-coming actress. Then a bulk order from a boutique in Brooklyn that wanted to carry my reconstructed denim line. I was making more from Thea Revived in a month than I earned in 3 at the accounting firm. But I kept both jobs, partly out of caution, partly to maintain my cover. "You look exhausted," my coworker Jen remarked one Monday morning. "You should get out more, have some fun on the weekends instead of whatever you're doing." If only she knew that whatever I was doing had involved fulfilling an order for a celebrity stylist, redesigning my website, and preparing a limited collection that sold out in 4 hours. "I'm fine," I said. "Just binged too many shows last night." My phone vibrated in my pocket, another order notification. I suppressed a smile. Let them all think I was wasting my potential. Let them believe I spent my nights watching Netflix instead of building an empire. Let my sister continue dismissing me as she chased investors and acclaim. Because while she was talking about fashion, I was making it. And soon, very soon, everyone would know it. Just not quite yet. The family group chat exploded with congratulatory messages the day Vanessa's press release hit the fashion blogs. "Vanessa Carlyle launches luxury label with industry backing," read the headline, accompanied by a photo of my sister in an all-white power suit, surrounded by smiling investors. "So proud of my girl," Dad wrote, followed by champagne emojis. "Always knew you'd make it big," Mom added. I sent a thumbs-up emoji and a generic congrats, then set my phone face down on my desk. Outside my apartment window, rain streaked the glass, matching my mood. 2 years out of community college, and I'd upgraded from my parents' house to a small one-bedroom apartment. Progress, but nothing compared to Vanessa's apparent meteoric rise.
My phone rang.
Vanessa herself, probably calling to ensure I understood the magnitude of her achievement. "Hey," I answered, keeping my voice neutral. "Did you see it?" she asked without preamble. "The announcements in WWD and Fashionista. The investors put in 7 figures, Maya."
7.
"And the launch party is next month at the Plaza." "That's amazing," I said and meant it. Whatever our differences, I couldn't fault her ambition. "You should come," she continued, her voice shifting to that slightly condescending tone I knew too well. "We're something normal, though. I'll be networking with serious industry people." I glanced at my current project spread across my work table, a vintage ball gown I was deconstructing into a modern avant-garde piece. "Sure," I said. "I'll find something appropriate." "Great. Oh, and speaking of appropriate, I could use an extra pair of hands for gift bags that weekend. You're good with crafty stuff. I can pay you." And there it was. In Vanessa's world, my skills qualified me to stuff gift bags for her event. "I'll check my schedule," I replied, knowing full well I'd be working on a major order that weekend. After hanging up, I turned to my laptop where an email had just arrived from my largest client yet, a costume designer for an upcoming streaming series who wanted an entire collection of reconstructed vintage pieces for the lead character. The budget? 6 figures. I read the email twice, then laughed until tears ran down my face. My phone dinged again with another family group message, a photo of Vanessa toasting with her investors. Below it, my father had written, "This is what hard work and talent looks like." If only they knew. By this point, Thea Revived had outgrown my apartment. I'd secretly leased a small warehouse space across town and hired 3 part-time assistants, all art school students who were thrilled to work for an underground fashion sensation and signed ironclad NDAs about my identity. I'd quit the accounting firm 6 months earlier, telling my family I was exploring freelance opportunities. Technically true, though they assumed I meant bookkeeping. My anonymity had become part of my brand's allure. Fashion blogs speculated that Thea Revived might be run by a retired celebrity or an established designer testing experimental concepts. The mystery drove interest, and interest drove sales. The night of Vanessa's launch party arrived. I wore a simple black dress, one of my own designs, though nothing that screamed Thea Revived, and heels I could tolerate for a few hours. The Plaza Ballroom glittered with fashion elite, industry journalists, and investors circling my sister like satellites around a planet. "Maya, you came." Vanessa air-kissed both my cheeks when she spotted me. "And you look presentable." "High praise," I replied dryly. "Congratulations on all this." She beamed, gesturing around the room. "This is just the beginning. We're projecting $8 million in sales our first year. The buyers from Barney's and Neiman Marcus are already placing orders." As she spoke, I noticed 2 young women nearby examining my sister's display collection. One wore a Thea Revived jacket, a piece from my limited autumn collection that had sold out in hours. "Excuse me," I heard one say to the other. "But is that authentic Thea?" The wearer nodded proudly. "Got it during the flash sale. Cost 3 months' rent, but worth every penny." God, I'm so jealous. Did you hear they just signed that deal with Netstream for the costume design? My cousin works in production and said the budget was insane. I suppressed a smile as I turned back to my sister, who was oblivious to the fact that her biggest competition stood right beside her, and that a guest at her own launch party was wearing my design rather than hers. "What are you smirking at?" Vanessa asked. "Nothing. Just enjoying the party." I sipped my champagne. "Tell me more about your projections." Later that night, I returned to my warehouse where my team was preparing a major shipment. My phone buzzed with a notification, my accountant confirming that our quarterly revenue had officially crossed the 7-figure mark. I was now, by definition, running $1 million business. I popped open a bottle of champagne I'd brought from the party and shared it with my 3 assistants. "What are we celebrating?" Mira, my lead seamstress, asked. "The fact that sometimes the person nobody sees coming is the one who ends up leading the race," I replied. "Is this about your sister's launch?" Avery, another assistant, asked. They were the only people who knew my full story. Let's just say her $1 million investment and my $1 million revenue happened in the same week. I raised my plastic cup to coincidences. They cheered, unaware of the sweet vindication coursing through me. While Vanessa was just beginning her journey with investor money and sky-high expectations, I'd built something sustainable, debt-free, and truly mine. The best part? No one in my family had the slightest idea. To them, I was still the directionless younger daughter with the quirky hobby, the one who needed to get serious about life. Oh, if they only knew how serious I'd become. My phone pinged with another group chat message, a press photo of Vanessa cutting a ribbon at her launch, captioned by my mother. "Our family's rising star." I set down my phone without responding and returned to my work table. The costume designer needed mock-ups by morning, and I had empire building to do. The trajectory of success rarely follows a straight line. For some, like me, it's a steady climb from obscurity to recognition. For others, like my sister, it's a spectacular ascent followed by an equally dramatic descent. Vanessa's fall began approximately 8 months after her grand launch. I first noticed it in the industry blogs. References to her label, once breathless with anticipation, became sparse, then tinged with criticism. Derivative, one influential reviewer called her spring collection. "Overpriced basics masquerading as luxury," wrote another. Then came the Instagram post from a major influencer who'd once championed her brand, disappointed by quality issues with my recent at Vanessa Carlisle design purchase. "For these prices, stitching shouldn't unravel after one wear. #expensive disappointment." The post went viral in fashion circles. I monitored this downward spiral from afar, saying nothing in our family chats when the frequency of Vanessa's triumphant updates gradually diminished. Meanwhile, Thea Revived had become the darling of sustainable fashion, with waitlists for my limited releases stretching months long. I'd expanded to a larger warehouse, employed 12 people full-time, and finally moved from my cramped apartment to a spacious loft that I'd renovated to include a professional home studio. "Your new place is interesting," Mom said during her first visit, eyeing my vintage industrial furniture and wall of fabric samples with barely concealed disapproval. "I suppose it suits your lifestyle." I bit my tongue. My lifestyle now included a 7-figure income and features in major fashion publications, but as far as they knew, I was still just getting by with freelance work and my quirky sewing hobby. The first direct hit to Vanessa's empire came when a major department store dropped her line, citing poor sales performance. 2 more retailers followed suit within weeks. Then my phone rang on a Tuesday night. "Vanessa." We hadn't spoken directly in nearly 2 months. "Hey," I answered, setting aside the profit reports I'd been reviewing. "Did you see the Business of Fashion article?" Her voice was tight, controlled, but I could hear the strain underneath. "No, what article?" "Industry Wunderkind struggles. Is Vanessa Carlisle's label the latest cautionary tale?" She quoted bitterly. "They're saying my investors are pulling out." "Are they?" I asked carefully. A pause then. "Yes." For a moment, I felt a vindictive satisfaction. The sister who'd mocked my creativity for years was watching her conventional path crumble. But the feeling dissolved almost immediately. Whatever our differences, she was still my sister. "I'm sorry, Vanessa. That's rough." "It's the economy," she insisted. "Luxury is always the first to feel a downer. Everyone's struggling." That wasn't true. Thea Revived had just closed our most profitable quarter ever, and most sustainable brands were thriving as consumer preferences shifted. But this wasn't the time to point that out. "What will you do?" I asked instead. "Pivot," she replied firmly. "I'm organizing an industry event, a showcase featuring emerging, sustainable designers. Show that I can adapt to changing markets. I've already reached out to some underground labels." My heart skipped a beat. "Like who?" "Mostly small names, but I'm trying to get Thea Revived as the headliner. They're impossible to reach directly, but their PR team said they'd consider it. Having them would guarantee press coverage." I nearly choked. My sister was unknowingly asking me to save her failing brand. "That's a smart move," I managed. "I need this to work, Maya." Her voice cracked slightly. "Dad and Mom invested their retirement fund in my second round." I sat up straight. "They what?" "They believed in me," she said defensively. "Everyone did. The problem isn't my designs, it's market conditions. If I can just weather this storm." After we hung up, I paced my loft for hours. My parents had invested in Vanessa's failing business. The same parents who dismissed my hobby as a waste of time had gambled their future on my sister's unraveling dream. The next morning, I received the formal invitation in my professional email account, an invitation for Thea Revived to headline Vanessa Carlisle's Future of Fashion showcase. "This collaboration could elevate both our brands," her message read. "Your innovative approach to sustainable design perfectly complements my luxury aesthetic. Together, we could create something unprecedented." The email revealed how little she understood about my brand or why it was succeeding while hers faltered. It wasn't just about sustainability, it was about authenticity, creativity, and genuine innovation. All the things she'd mocked me for pursuing. That evening, my parents called during their weekly check-in. "Have you spoken to your sister?" Mom asked immediately. "Yesterday, briefly." "She's going through a challenging time," Dad said, his voice uncharacteristically subdued. "Business setbacks happen to everyone." I could hear what they weren't saying, that they were worried about their investment, that their golden child's failure would impact their retirement. "She mentioned you too invested," I said carefully. A pause. "We believe in her," Mom finally replied. "She just needs a big win right now. This showcase could turn everything around." I murmured something non-committal, then changed the subject. Later, I called an emergency meeting with my small executive team, the only people who knew my true identity. Vanessa Carlyle wants Thea revived to headline her showcase, I told them. The same Vanessa Carlyle who happens to be my sister and has no idea I'm behind this brand. Their shocked expressions would have been comical under different circumstances. What are you going to do? Mira asked. I stared at the mood board for our upcoming collection, pieces that represented everything I'd built, everything I believed in. I'm going to accept, I said finally. But on one condition, it's time for Thea Revived to have a face. For the first time, I'll appear publicly as the designer. Are you sure? Avery asked. The mystery has been part of our appeal. Yes, I replied, thinking of my parents' retirement fund, of Vanessa's desperation, of all the years of dismissal and mockery. I'm sure. It's time for everyone to see exactly who's been behind this success all along. I drafted my response to Vanessa's invitation with meticulous care. Thea Revived is pleased to accept your invitation. Please note that our founder and designer will be making their first public appearance at this event. We look forward to a revealing collaboration. If only she knew just how revealing it would be. The night of Vanessa's Future of Fashion showcase arrived with the weight of inevitability. For weeks, I'd prepared for this moment, not just the collection that would walk the runway, but myself. The person behind Thea Revived would finally step into the spotlight. Are you nervous? Mira asked as she helped me into my signature piece, a reconstructed vintage 1950s evening gown transformed with architectural elements and hand-embroidered constellations mapping the night sky on my birthday. A dress that told my story, taking something discarded and revealing its hidden potential. Terrified, I admitted, studying my reflection. I barely recognized myself. Professional hair and makeup had transformed me from the shabby little sister into someone who looked like they belonged in the fashion world. Remember, Avery said, adjusting my accessories, you've earned this moment. Every stitch, every late night, every time you were dismissed, it's all led here. The venue was a converted industrial space in Chelsea, ironically similar to my own warehouse. Vanessa had spared no expense on what was essentially her Hail Mary pass. Soft lighting, champagne flowing freely, industry elites mingling with carefully selected media. A last gamble with borrowed money. I arrived deliberately late with my small entourage. Through the venue's windows, I could see the event was already in full swing. Vanessa stood near the entrance, greeting guests in a white designer suit that probably cost more than my first month's rent. Ready? Mira squeezed my hand. I nodded, unable to speak through the tightness in my throat. We entered as a group, my team forming a protective barrier around me. Per our agreement with the event organizers, I would remain anonymous until the final walk. The mysterious Thea Revived would be revealed only after the collection had spoken for itself. Across the room, I watched Vanessa's face light up as she spotted my team. Her eyes scanned our group, clearly trying to determine which one was the elusive designer, skating right past me without recognition. Why would she look twice at her little sister? In her mind, I was incapable of this level of success. The Thea Revived team, she exclaimed, approaching us. I'm Vanessa Carlyle. We're honored you agreed to headline tonight. Mira stepped forward as planned. We're excited to be part of the event. Our designer will be revealed after the show. Vanessa's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. Of course. How dramatic. The press will eat it up. She led us to our designated area, chattering about the running order and the influential buyers in attendance. I remained silent, just another face in the entourage. My parents stood near the bar, watching Vanessa work the room with proud smiles that didn't quite reach their eyes. They looked older, worried. The stakes of tonight's event were written in the new lines on their faces. 10 minutes to first look, a coordinator announced. Backstage was controlled chaos, models being sewn into last-minute adjustments, makeup artists making final touches, designers giving pep talks to their teams. In our section, my collection hung ready, each piece telling a story of transformation and rebirth. Your parents are here, Avery whispered. Front row. I nodded. Vanessa would have made sure of it. The showcase began with 3 emerging designers. Their work was competent but safe, conventional sustainability without true innovation. Then came Vanessa's newest collection. I watched critically as her models walked. The pieces were beautiful in a technical sense, but lacked soul. Luxury signifiers without genuine creativity. The audience's applause was polite, not passionate. Then it was our turn. The lights dimmed. The music changed to the haunting instrumental piece I'd selected. My first model stepped onto the runway in a reconstructed 1940s military jacket transformed into an avant-garde masterpiece. The crowd's reaction was immediate. Gasps, phones raised to capture the moment, whispers spreading through the audience. Each look built on the last, telling a cohesive story of history reimagined. I watched from the wings, heart pounding as 16 pieces of my life's work paraded before the industry's most discerning eyes. When the final model returned backstage, the applause was thunderous. I caught a glimpse of Vanessa's face, a complex mixture of appreciation and alarm. My collection had overshadowed everything else in the showcase, including her own. And now, the announcer's voice echoed through the space, the moment we've all been waiting for. For the first time ever, the designer behind Thea Revived will take the runway. Mira squeezed my hand. Showtime. I stepped onto the runway, blinking against the bright lights. For a moment, there was confused silence. No one recognized me. Then, as I walked the length of the catwalk, the realization began to spread. In the front row, my mother's hand flew to her mouth. My father's brow furrowed in confusion. And Vanessa. Vanessa stood frozen at the side of the runway, her face a mask of disbelief. I reached the end of the catwalk and stopped, taking in the moment. Then I spoke into the microphone offered to me. For those who don't know me, my name is Maya Carlisle. Some of you might know me as Vanessa Carlisle's younger sister. A murmur rippled through the crowd, but most of you know my work as Thea Revived. The explosion of camera flashes was blinding. Journalists who had been casually observing suddenly scrambled to capture the moment. I caught fragments of their hurried conversations. Sisters, secret identity, $1 million brand, biggest reveal in fashion this year. From the corner of my eye, I saw Vanessa sway slightly, a champagne glass clutched in her white-knuckled hand. Our parents looked between us in complete shock, their worldview visibly shattering. I continued, my voice growing stronger. I want to thank my sister for this opportunity to finally share not just my work, but my identity. It seems fitting that after years of working in the shadows, I step into the light on a stage she created. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The polite applause became a roar as I took my final bow and walked backstage. Behind the curtain, Vanessa was waiting. You? She whispered, her voice barely audible over the continuing applause. All this time it was you? I met her gaze steadily. All this time. But how? Why didn't you tell me? Tell any of us? For the first time in my life, I saw something I'd never seen in my sister's eyes when she looked at me. Respect, tinged with fear. The tables had turned so completely that she couldn't quite process it. Would you have believed me? I asked softly. She had no answer. The fashion world exploded after the showcase. Fashion's biggest plot twist. Thea Revived revealed AS Vanessa Carlisle's sister screamed headlines across industry publications. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing with interview requests and partnership offers, but I silenced them all for 48 hours. I needed space to process. On the third day, my doorbell rang. Vanessa stood outside, her usual confidence noticeably diminished. When she entered my loft, her eyes widened as she took in the evidence of my success. Sketches pinned to walls, fabric samples organized meticulously, industry awards I'd never displayed to my family. So this is where the magic happens, she said, her attempt at lightness falling flat.
Some of it.
The main production is at the warehouse. She nodded, fidgeting with her bag. Last season's I noticed. Mom and Dad sent me. Did they? They're processing. We all are. She sank onto my couch. Why the secret, Maya? Why let us believe you were struggling all these years? I leaned against my work table. Would you have suddenly respected my garbage fashion if you knew it was making millions? She flinched at hearing her own words thrown back at her. I was a stupid kid. You were saying the same things at your launch party last year. I didn't know what you were building. Because you never asked. The words hung between us, heavy with years of dismissal. Not once did any of you see value in what I created. You pitted me. That's not fair, she protested weakly. Isn't it? Mom and Dad invested their retirement in your brand without hesitation. Did they ever offer to help me buy so much as a sewing machine? She had no answer. After regrouping, she straightened her shoulders. What's done is done. I've been thinking a collaboration could save my brand and elevate yours. Carlisle sisters taking on fashion together. I studied her face. Even now, she was looking for an angle. That's your pitch? After everything, you want to leverage my success to save your failing label? It makes business sense. My luxury aesthetic, your sustainable innovation. No, I interrupted quietly. She blinked, genuinely shocked. No. Your brand is failing because you created what you thought would sell, not what you believed in. There's no heart in it, Vanessa. Her face flushed. That's not. It is. And I won't dilute what I've built. So, what happens to me? To Mom and Dad's investment? I'd considered this question carefully. Despite everything, they were still my family. I'm not going to leave you all hanging. Relief flooded her features. So you'll help. Not with a collaboration. I handed her a folder. 2 options. First, I can buy out your remaining inventory at wholesale price. It would return some capital to your investors. She scanned the numbers. This would barely cover a quarter of what's been invested. It's fair market value for designs that aren't selling. The second option is on the next page. Her eyes widened. A job offer? Director of Marketing for Thea Revived. You'd start in a junior role for 6 months, but you have industry connections we could use. You want me to work for you? Disbelief colored her voice. With me, I corrected, but under my vision. No creative control over designs. Vanessa laughed hollowly. All those years I told you to get serious about a real career, and now you're offering me one. Life takes unexpected turns. She closed the folder. I need time to think.
Take it.
But not too much. The offer expires in a week. After she left, I called my parents. The conversation was awkward, filled with pauses and half-formed questions. They oscillated between pride in my success and hurt at my deception. We always just wanted security for you, Mom finally said. Vanessa's path seemed safer. I know, I replied, but I had to find my own way. 3 days later, Vanessa called. I'll take the job. You understand the conditions? You'll be learning from the ground up. No special treatment. I understand. Her voice was steady. I know I don't deserve your help after how I treated you. This isn't charity, Vanessa. I think you have skills my company can use once you realign your priorities. A week later, she arrived for her first day, dressed impeccably, but without her usual designer labels. At lunch, we sat in my office reviewing social media strategy. I still can't believe you built all this while we thought you were just scraping by, she said, gesturing around us. Sometimes the person no one is watching becomes capable of anything, I replied. There's freedom in being underestimated. She nodded thoughtfully. You know, Dad called me yesterday all excited because he found an old jacket of mine in the attic, said maybe you could fix it up and sell it online for a few bucks. We both laughed, the sound breaking some of the tension between us. Some things never change, I said. But some things do, she countered, meeting my eyes. I was wrong about you, Maya. About your work. About what matters in this industry. Do you think we can ever go back to being sisters? Not just colleagues. I considered this as I looked out at the busy workshop floor. I think we're finding our way to something new. Something better than before. She nodded, relief evident in her expression. Just don't ever call my designs garbage fashion again, I added with a small smile. Never, she promised. Though I do have some thoughts about your spring color palette. I raised an eyebrow. Marketing associate input noted. Now get back to work." Vanessa laughed and returned to her desk. As she focused on her task, I observed my sister, humbled but adapting, learning to see value in a different kind of success than she'd imagined. Sometimes the greatest revenge isn't in destroying your critics, but in giving them a chance to see the world through your eyes. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, they might actually learn to see